Welcome to 2025, Season 5 of the Bible Nation Podcast. I'm Doug Levesque with Jason Georges and Jesse Levesque for the Bible Nation Podcast. Well, it's been nearly 3 weeks since the inauguration of Donald Trump into his second presidency, and it's been a whirlwind. It feels like 2 days. I mean, he's not just hitting one thing after another. He's shotgunning. He's emptying a 20-round shotgun on everything and everybody, and it's actually hard to keep track of. Today, in our first episode, we're going to talk about domestic policy and executive order and the rapid changes and perhaps direction that we're going and how it connects with what we believe is a Bible culture. So stay tuned. The best culture is a Bible culture. It's proven, and it works. What are we standing up for? The ability, the freedom to do what's right as God defines that right.
God's the ultimate author of liberty.
We don't want government to stand between us and our freedom to do what is right.
All right. Happy 2025, Pastor Georges. How's your life? I heard you had a daughter that got married.
I keep saying the clock is ticking now. I don't know if they're
It's
planning.
over.
I don't know if they're planning on having kids, but now we're on the. Yeah, no, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
We're excited. Got a new son-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's
no, we're
thinking.
happy.
He's
We're
ready
happy.
to go. Yeah, that's good.
We're happy.
No, that's good. Congratulations. And
Yeah.
that's just a great place of life to be. Of course, your youngest daughter is
9 years old,
9. So you got a long ways
and I'm
before
coaching
you're...
her YMCA basketball team.
Yeah,
So-
that's great. Like you've got nothing else to do.
Right. Yeah.
Well, hey, we're in 2025. We made it through 2024, and it was so contentious. And then all of a sudden we get to 2025, and things are changing. And to an extent, I think a lot of people, especially conservative people or Christian people, feel like the sun is coming out. The birds are chirping. It kind of feels that way a little bit. But we're going to talk about it, biblically as well, some of the issues. It's great to have Jesse Levesque, my son here, and Jackson's on studio. But Jesse is the only Levesque that's been successfully elected to public office. And so he said, Dad, we should be talking about domestic policy. And so we brought him in. And so, guys, you add to whatever it is here, because when we talk about this whirlwind, we could talk about 20 things. We don't have time to talk about 20 things.
Right.
I just listed 4 things, but you feel free to say, anything that you want in that. I thought, first off, you get in office and you get your cabinet appointments. And so we've got all these cabinet appointments, and it's strange because we've got some outspoken Christians. Mike Huckabee is a Baptist preacher, was the president of the Southern Baptist Convention, governor of Arkansas, ran for president, won Iowa, right, and then got his own TV show on Fox. I mean, very successful guy, outspoken Christian, Jesus Christ, everything else, promotes a Bible culture, and he's now the ambassador to Israel.
Yeah, amazing.
And I mean, here's a guy that's like, no, one state solution.
Dispensationalist. Rapture.
Yeah.
Jesus coming back. Yes.
I mean, how you couldn't get please us more to put that guy in that particular spot, overtly Christian. Then you got a bunch of guys like the Vice President Vance and Pete Hegseth that are kind of Catholic, Orthodox, Christian, but they're very outspoken about that. And so maybe something isn't real Christianity or agreed upon Christianity, but it certainly is a Christian culture. We're talking about Jesus. We're talking about that. And so we got all these guys that seem, and ladies as well, that seem super conservative. And then you've got a couple outspoken homosexual cabinet members as well, in Grinnell, who just was successful going down to Venezuela and getting a bunch of hostages back or prisoners back. And he's been a diplomatic juggernaut. He was left, and then he followed Trump, and I guess he's right now. I don't know, rightist. And then the Treasury Secretary guy, he's a outspoken homosexual as well, but very fiscally conservative. So you've got this cabinet member that's got male and female, that's got Christian right and social moral left. So is he trying to please all people? Is he trying to?
Well, I think this is a product of the battle line has been moved, and now we've fought against it kicking and screaming. We wanted the battle line to be marriage.
Yeah.
Right, and so that's where we've contended.
Abortion and marriage. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but on the moral side of it, right,
Yeah.
on as far as human sexuality,
Yeah.
and so therefore, marriage being defined as one man and one woman for one lifetime, which then has its conclusions about homosexuality connected with that. But the battle line has now been moved back. It is a retreat.
Yeah.
That now we're arguing over gender, and so where the president is being applauded on is getting male and female correct, which is such a low standard,
It is.
actually.
And it's interesting because we've been dealing with this for a decade.
Right.
It's about religious freedom and things like this as compared to LGBTQ rights, because they just blend together. And of course, the president just came out and talked about religious rights and on all that. And the people, the homosexual people that he's got in office or that are supporting him, they don't have a problem talking about those things, which also I think is a retreat. Mm-hmm. But everybody dislikes the transgenders, the transvestites. Everybody, I mean, even the LGBTQ are like, no, don't add those letters to our framework because they're crazy. I mean, it's just funny how you say that the shit. What is the right now? What is the line that's conservative and right? And it is shifted. And I've talked to people about Jesus here lately, and you can tell they're watching all these conservative YouTube channels or whatever that to them are conservative, and they're pretty proud how conservative they are. But the reality is this is so doctrinally off when it comes to orthodoxy.
And there's a lot of...
It's another gospel, Go ahead.
There's a lot of conservative influencers, outspoken homosexuals, and it's almost like they wear it as a badge that, like, they're that, even though they're conservative leaning.
Yeah.
And what's sad is you see a lot of conservative, even Christians, almost kind of hold them as tokens, and it's like, no, but that's not right.
Yeah.
We shouldn't celebrate those people just because they agree with your political, ideas. And so I'm seeing a lot more of those kinds of figures as influencers.
I think why we're celebrating is because we are in a post-Christian America. Yeah. We already are post-Christian America. It's an anti-Christian America. And so then all of a sudden we get a few wins and we're so thrilled, about it. And I think we should thank God, because if nothing else, it does kind of hold back full-fledged apostasy, anti-Christian society a little bit, but we also need to make sure that we're careful about calling good evil and evil good with that. But
the standard, God's standard hasn't changed.
Right.
God's standard hasn't changed. Yeah. So even in Israel's decline in the Old Testament, you get this sense in the scriptures of you didn't have great kings, but then they weren't as bad as.
Right.
And so Israel's decline was a lot of not bad as.
Yeah.
Not as bad as. Yeah. And that kind of sounds funny. And so that's not good either.
Yeah.
Now, it's all, the gravity of time is moving towards the return of Christ.
Yeah, and so if we're sliding downhill, but we have this uphill moment, let's rejoice, let's recognize what it is. We're not going to shift the line, even though it's been shifted, but hopefully it doesn't, take another turn. But I'm not going to be pessimistic, because right now it seems like so much is spinning pro-America. So I'm a man, I'm a Christian, but I'm an American. Yeah. And I like the cabinet appointments as far as that's concerned. But, I think the Bible Nation Society, we as preachers, we still have a responsibility to call out darkness wherever it exists, even if it's in the president. One thing I did have a problem with at the inauguration is that he did not put his hand on the Bible. Did you guys see that?
Yeah.
So he had two Bibles. I don't know what they were. And Melania had them. And it came time to put your hand on the Bible, raise your hand, put your hand on the Bible. And she came up, brought the Bible out. He raised his hand, didn't put his hand on the Bible. Some people are saying, Melania got there late or whatever. But I mean, it was so split second.
So I looked into that a little bit.
Yeah.
And one of his Bibles is his Bible, God Bless the USA. It's a Trump version.
It's the Trump Bible!
I don't know that his name's on it, so I won't say that. But it's got a bunch of political documents. It's got Lee Greenwood's God Bless the USA Constitution, and retails for $60.
So you got the Trump Bible, you got the Trump watch, you got Trump shoes,
tie.
The joke, but the joke about it, and I haven't verified, but that he gets them printed in China.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true or not, but I did look at it. It actually is the King James, but one of those Bibles was Trump's God Bless the USA Bible that he's been selling.
Yeah.
For more than just the inauguration.
Yeah.
He had it there.
Yeah.
So
it's the Trump Study Bible.
But he didn't put his hand on it. It was just there.
Yeah. God Bless the USA Bible.
It's the Trump Study Bible.
It's a thing. Him and Lee Greenwood.
Inspired by Lee Greenwood, patriotic anthem.
I don't know if there's any other presidents who missed out on putting their hand on the Bible. I mean, I don't know that, but it's interesting that there's such a semblance in speaking of God and Christianity. He uses the word Christianity, and it's kind of third person. When they've asked him about it, he one time there's a video out there where addressing his sin, and he's like, I try to be good. I don't really have any sin to be sorry for. So you can't really be a Christian if you're not redeemed in that regard.
There is something to be said about it being King James, too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I would think
I had to Google it. I didn't see it on the place it was being sold. That it said the version. I Googled it,
Yeah.
and it says King James.
it's the
version.
King James version. Wow.
Well, and it's also the only one he can print without having to pay for a
True,
royalty.
there's that, yeah.
So it is the economic choice to print
Yeah.
King James Bible.
That is true. Yeah, I don't know if I should bring that up in my debate come April with the non-King Jamesers or not. They're like, "Yep, all you Trump dispensationalists," you know. Okay, well let's move on to executive orders. And I've always been a believer in executive orders, but you look in the past, other presidents, I mean, they got 5 executive orders, 12 executive orders. I mean, they're just flying off. He doesn't even know if they are. Bill, tell us what this executive order is, and then he's signing
by
it
lunchtime.
Yeah, and he's holding it up like it, you know. And so, but you know, Biden did the same thing previously. So, is there another way to you're the executive, and how do you beat back on a bureaucracy that's evil, cheating, deceptive, doing everything in bed with the enemy? How do you do that? I mean, I'm kind of for, if I was president, I'd be signing executive orders because the courts then try to deal with them. But if you're going to fight, that's your first salvo.
I'm amazed at how quickly so much of the Biden presidency and a lot of things they did are just upended. I'm amazed that a whole presidency can and there's not everything, but just so much of it can be.
Yeah,
we're done. We're in another direction. I just never thought I'd see that.
It was interesting that the gal that was Kamala Harris's primary campaign manager, and obviously she was a handler, she came out on some conservative talk shows, conservative podcasts, and basically spilled the beans. And she said that Biden was absolutely Obama's third term. That's what. So she said Obama was the directive. It was that was all that was going on, and so Harris was an attempt to try to, get it down the line. And she just says it, and then she said what was wrong with it and how Obama was kind of in the kingmaker, decision makers. And so I think if Trump really is against that, he's just trying to executive order it out. I mean, Obama had a promise of changing America fundamentally, and he has. His only foreign policy promise was to change the Sykes-Picot lines after World War I in the Middle East, which is Syria, Jordan, Lebanon, Israel. And he more or less has done that, if you think about it. There was the Civil War, there's the earthquake, there was troops there, troops not there, mayhem in Lebanon, now HTS has taken over Syria, and so that whole place is up for grabs, and of course I think Trump thinks this would be great real estate deal, on the whole 9 yards. And so, it's just interesting what his perspective is, countering it with executive orders. I think the ones that I like were the anti-DEI executive orders, like we're getting this out. And even Pete Hegseth in the Pentagon.
In the military.
Yeah, he said, we're not having Black Day, Women Day. I mean, he got rid of everything.
Which is good.
Yeah, because meritocracy, we're warriors, and we're going to be, it's all based on lethality, not that. And so don't make the military or the federal institutions social change agents, in that regard.
Trump said he used the language of experimenting on our soldiers with these kinds of policies. We're experimenting on them.
Yeah, and then when you put it in the academies for 4 years, then you've got a whole group of officers coming up that are of that mindset.
But the U.S. military has been a major mover of American culture.
Absolutely.
And so, where culture can be marked by the wars that we fought and the vices and the habits and the language and whatever.
Yep.
And so, even that suburban America is a result of soldiers coming back from World War II and wanting to have their own house and all those. Yeah. It's those pieces. So there is if you want to affect American culture, affect the American military.
And, a lot of African Americans would say the military was good because it helped us get some equality and some respect, et cetera, et cetera. And I say it's good, but where it's always this political, Jenga piece, where it's always this political monster, there's always room for compromise. And so I think it's great that women have an opportunity in the military. But, 1 in a bazillion is going to be G.I. Jane. Yeah. They're just not going to be that. And so Pete Hegseth's been crucified, for that. And, I'm glad that was one of the executive orders that he did that. And then no funding of transgenders. I mean, he just boom, it's just done. So I give credit to Trump and his appointees and the people that got him elected, because that was one of the main. And if Bible Nation is anything about culture, it's about social conservatism. that is social conservatism, or at least fighting back, on the line. You go
Yeah,
ahead.
we're fighting for the very definitions. We've said over and over, nations are defined by their language, and so language is defined by vocabulary, and whoever owns the vocabulary wins. And there is a great sense in what he's doing now of taking back the vocabulary. Taking back the vocabulary of gender, taking back the vocabulary of what is male and what is female.
Yeah.
And then so you have the guys like the Charlie Kirks of the world who are really, are pushing against that. If you watch a lot of his videos online of defining what a female is,
Right.
and how they're unable, this ideology is unable to even come up
Can't
with a
do it.
definition
Right.
of what a female is.
Assigned at birth, as though God didn't assign it by gender. It's all God rejection. It's all godless communists. If you read the Communist Manifesto, one of the things that they say and how to overturn the culture is to things that even they look down on, like homosexuality, is to promote that in the other society as a breakdown of that society. And so the fact that Trump's doing that is probably to an extent what he's anti-communist.
Yeah.
Not he's great Christian, but he's anti-communist. And so, I'll take it, because you don't always, whoever your king is, that's what you got to
Well,
get.
and he's red-blooded. He's a red-blooded American.
Yeah.
For being a
He likes
billionaire.
women. He tells us that. I love women.
For being a billionaire, right?
Right.
He is connected. He'll use the term "my people." Well, they've never been your people. You didn't come from this, but he does understand Middle America.
Yeah.
He does, even if it's just from a pure marketing standpoint.
Yeah.
He knows how to communicate to them. Now, I get concerned because we are so easily wooed.
Yeah.
Just say a couple nice things to me and give me a
Yeah.
box of chocolates,
Yeah.
and that's it.
Yeah.
And we're so easily won over about those kind of things. But yeah, he has figured out how to communicate to America and took advantage of the media, just the superiority complex of the media of talking down to everybody.
Yeah. He does come across as, even though he's a billionaire, as the everyman's. He does come across that. I think I'm concerned with going forward. How many more executive orders are there? If it becomes how we do things, how easy then would it be to executive order things that were not culturally conservative or that were anti-Christian?
No, I'm glad you brought that up, as I was looking at some research here. So the big, the champion of executive orders is Roosevelt. Franklin Roosevelt was 3,700.
Wow.
So, and no one else is close. And then Woodrow Wilson was like 1,600. Now, they're both wartime presidents, right? And then everyone else. So we're talking total executive orders. Mm-hmm. Now, the thing about what makes what's happening now so a new phenomenon, it's not, they're not even close to the same executive orders. So even Obama, Biden won, Trump won. Did not get close to those numbers. They were in the hundreds of executive orders for their term. Yeah. What's astounding is how many they signed the first day, first week, and first 100 days. Yeah. And so there's not a record of a first day executive order till Bill Clinton had one. And then it wasn't until Donald Trump first time had one. And then Biden had 9. And then this year, Trump had 26. Yeah. So that first day salvo, but I think it's a little bit understanding coming in prepared, right?
Yeah.
They had
prepared and coming into a race. Like
and then when you get to the first week, it's a lot of 1s and 3s, but then Biden 2. So Obama had 5 in his first week. Trump had 4. Trump 1 had his 4, and then Biden had 22, and now Trump had 36. Right. Now, when you get to 100 days, Truman 57, Roosevelt 51. And then Biden was 42, Trump 1 was 33 in the first 100 days. Trump has already beat them all. Yeah. So we're already at 53 and we're not 100 days yet. So he will hold the record on the greatest on the first day, first week, and first 100 days.
And I would say it's unprecedented, but it is precedented because that's what's necessary. Like I said, that's what I would have to do. I'm just concerned going forward. And I think even though we're for the executive orders, we still have to, as Americans, think, well, that Constitution is our almighty. Right. It's God, and then it's the Constitution, and then it's the president.
Yeah. Constitutionally, the check and balance. What is the balance to an executive order? Yeah. Is it the Supreme Court? Yeah. Probably, right? Yeah. They'll get challenged first in the Supreme Court, and then they can only be overturned if they're deemed legal. Yeah. Then Congress has to pass a law.
I think the corruption, the degradation is so deep. It's like cancer. You have to go real deep on the surgery. And this is what this is. It's
Oh, yeah.
emergency surgery, and it's going deep. So, but you could go too deep, on that. Well, let's move to immigration.
Before we move on,
Yeah.
what do we say the initial executive order is going to do to the peaceful transition of power? Let's say Trump does 4 years. Let's say J.D. Vance doesn't win the nomination,
Yeah.
and it goes blue somehow.
Yeah.
I don't see that happening.
Right.
But it goes blue, and we have whoever's next.
Come in and
It's
write
going to be
1,000.
Hillary
Yeah.
or whoever it is. Yeah, and they do.
Yeah.
They lead with more.
Right.
Is that divide
No,
just
that's
going
what
to
I'm
keep getting
saying
deeper
is not
as
just-
the center is wider and
So it's
wider?
not just dangerous for Trump to use it. It's dangerous for the precedent to be set.
Yeah, it's a dangerous power.
Yeah.
And you know what's most dangerous about it is how hard it is to undo it.
Right.
So it's one of those kind of like, I'm going to do it and ask for permission later.
Law of the Medes and the Persians.
Right. So I can go defund something
Yeah.
that probably ought to be funded, and it'll be done. It'll be destroyed. We missed the time. Like and then by the time it gets prosecuted,
Yeah.
and the judiciary pronounces it's over.
Yeah.
Okay, we messed up, but we accomplished our goal.
So more and more, you're getting people who are putting the Constitution aside to execute something in the immediacy. So that could be a danger. Let's talk immigration. That was a good point, Jackson. Thank you. One of the problems is we've always said that the borders are a policing action, and we don't send military troops in North America, but then in North America, and yet we've done that. We've got like 1,000 Marines, 1,500 Army guys, more people coming, National Guard, and Trump was able to get Mexico to put 10,000 troops on the border as well. I don't know if that was like, we're defending against your troops on the border. You know what I'm saying? Whereas like you were being provocative, so we're going to be defensive. But either way, they're there trying to take care of the real border problem. And I think immigration is a problem. Even the Democrats agree that it's a problem. If you don't have a border and a line, you don't have control, then you have illegalities and you have corruptions, etc. And so we've had that. So all of a sudden, within 3 weeks, we've got thousands of people arrested, sent to Guantanamo, on planes back to their countries. You got Rubio speaking Spanish down in all of the Central American countries saying, you take back your own things. The president of El Salvador, who's mastered conquering MS-13 in his own country, he has a way of incarceration that is impeccable. And he's offering the United States for a small fee, I'll house all your prisoners.
Brilliant.
I mean, but Trump's like, that's transactional, right? Trump is transactional in that regard. So, all of a sudden, like the immigration thing just got punched in the face. Just got punched in the face. Not done. Yeah. But it just got punched in the face. Go ahead.
Well, all the cartel. One of his big things in his speech was all cartels is going to be labeled as terror organizations.
Yeah.
Which is like, why haven't we done that? Why hasn't that been done already? But
so now we're going to unleash the dogs. I mean, the guys that are the dogs that really don't care who they kill, just give me a target. Mm-hmm. And I mean, how can we? I'm not against that. I'm not against that. Mm. They don't get due process and courts and all that kind of stuff. And people are dying. People are choosing to do drugs, but they are dying because they're not intending to die.
Well, it's a redefining of what is war, or it's a different type of war, right? So we realize that war is no longer battle lines on a map. Yeah. It is invasions of economies, the digital warfare. Yeah. And then this, Nancy Reagan's the one that started it, the war on drugs. The war on drugs.
Yeah, just say no.
Yeah, and so, I mean, here's this idea of this is a plague upon our nation. If for anything, an economic drain, because it makes our citizens, it creates crime, which is an economic drain. It makes our citizens unsafe, right? And it takes productive people, makes them unproductive, it makes them wards of the state.
It destroys the family unit.
Yeah, so it costs us. It costs us. And so, yes, stop it.
Yeah.
And which kind of goes into he is enforcing border security on this other principle that doesn't get utilized very much, tariffs.
Yeah.
I mean, which is a very 1800s kind of way of looking at the world, right? And of course, the media has gone ballistic. Yeah. How can he do this? And yet, in the first week, he played poker with 3 countries and has won. Yeah. He played poker with, is he bluffing? Is he not bluffing? Yeah. And Canada's back down, Mexico's back down, and then who was the other one? Colombia?
Nixon, Reagan, the Bushes, those Republicans, they're all for free trade, right? Right. Globalist markets and stuff like that. But then there comes a time of blowback where, like, you know what? We need a line. We need a tariff. Everybody's not welcome here. Everybody can't do business here in any way they want. And one of the things he says is, all these other countries are taking advantage of us. Canada has zero immigration policy, and so they're just bleeding, over as well. So, I like the cabinet appointments. I like some of the executive orders. I like the immigration things, but there are little fragments of overreach that we need to just keep our eyes on and be careful about. But I think overnight people are feeling more secure. Let's get these criminals off the.
Yeah, so right on the White House website, all those kind of immigration policies fall under his "Make America Safe Again" message.
Okay.
Which definitely would resonate with people.
Yeah.
There's no doubt that the last presidency made many Americans unsafe.
Yeah.
The fact that we're just taking over communities is absolutely wild. But I forget who said it. Those who would give up liberty for safety deserve neither.
Yeah.
I want to say Ben Franklin maybe. But
it was one of the signers.
So you gotta look at what all else we're given, and that goes back to the executive orders.
Yeah, it's interesting when he said tariffs too. He said there'll be some blowback. It'll be hard, but it'll be worth it. In other words, Americans need to toughen up too.
Yeah.
I don't want to pay $7 for eggs, but if it's winning for America, then I'll pay $10.
Good job, Jess.
Yeah.
Ben Franklin.
Pastor Jay said,
"Hey, Emmanuel,
was Ben
Emmanuel
Franklin?
Baptist Academy, Emmanuel Baptist School Education."
That's it right there.
Becca
Pastor
Book.
Jay said that as they redefine what war is, I'm sure if you looked at the casualty count of just the fentanyl and the human trafficking, you'd probably beat some of our lower wars,
Yeah.
especially on the yearly. You said it's draining our population.
I would say you'd beat all the wars together.
Yeah.
Civil War had 600,000. World War II had like 400,000, and then Vietnam, Korea were 50,000. You put all that together, you've got more than 1 million deaths.
Yeah, no, I think it was
With
Vance, or
drug-
maybe it was Trump, who basically made that point that
Yeah.
this drug epidemic has killed more than all our wars combined.
So it's probably time for the Marines to go into Mexico
Estimated
and get
deaths.
MS-13.
Estimated deaths of just fentanyl, in 23 was 74,000. In 22, 76,000. And that's not other methamphetamines, cocaine, and other things.
Yeah. And
That's
trafficking.
just fentanyl. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
that's just overdoses.
So, Russia and China cannot beat us. They cannot forward deploy troops. They cannot reach us with all their missiles, et cetera, et cetera. They can't. So they have to fight culture war. They have to fight in this other fifth column concept. And I think that's why I don't necessarily like Trump, but I would want a president who would fight back in those regards as well. And so, it's necessary. Well, let's close out this domestic policy and just talk about Christianity. Vance came out this week and said something about Ordo Amoris, which is the order of love. And he talked about, God, your family, your community, your country. And this is a very Catholic principle, actually. Now, it makes sense. It's common sense. But he's injecting Catholic Latin dogma and doctrine into his social promotion, which you're allowed to. I mean, if Huckabee thinks that Jesus is coming back and he's doing things in Israel, I mean, you're allowed to, but it's a big stage. It's a big stage for how are we ordering society? Yeah. And so I don't necessarily disagree with that, but again, be careful about the inflection of Catholicism into America, which has been Anglo-Saxon Protestant, right? In that regard. Vance's story, about being the white trash trailer park kid, goes to Harvard, right? Mom's a drug addict, grandma's tough as nails, goes to Harvard, marries, his wife, I don't know what her religion is or whatever, becomes a businessman, a biographer, makes a movie, gets elected. Beautiful American story. That is the American story. You can do it, right? Anything's possible. And now he's there. So I don't distrust him. I kind of like him, and I agree with most of his rhetoric in there. If something happens to Trump, then he's right there. He previously said, I don't like Trump, and Trump's dangerous, and I'll never vote for Trump sort of thing. So, I mean, he does have some sense to him, but he also has some political understanding about getting there. So I don't know. He's already been at prayer breakfasts and religious organization things. He's going on his first trip to Europe. He's going to represent us in Europe. So Trump, on the other hand, talks about Christianity in the third person, like it's this great thing. Like we would say capitalism is a great thing. Trump has Christianity like on the shelf in that and kind of adheres himself in that capacity. He does talk about God saved him to save America, right? So he has this martyrdom, messianic savior complex or idea. he definitely has put forth religious liberty things that we have shouted on this podcast about, that I think great, because those create the space for Christianity, right, and free thought. But not putting your hand on the Bible, and also allowing some of these other elements at the Republican National Convention, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, it's pragmatism over principle. So are we having real or imagined success?
Yeah, let's go back to that. I hadn't heard of that Ordo Amoris. That's a Latin phrase. It's Augustinian in its origins. It's Catholic, but then the Reformers are kind of grabbing a hold of it. But the idea of it is that there's a natural order of love, and it's based upon proximity and interest. Right. So therefore, it's natural that you love your brother. And they're bringing the scriptural context of it. They're talking about the idea of, if someone doesn't provide for their relatives, they're worse than an infidel. That's not the King James of that. Right. For their family, right? And then loving your mother and father and whatnot. But I'm kind of thinking about this. But that is, what made the Sermon on the Mount so radical was love your enemies.
Right.
I mean, love those are not practical for you to love, or are not by proximity of relation or of interest, right? They have mutually shared interests. I don't know. I'm thinking about that.
Of course you love those that love you.
Right.
But now I want a greater love. And so Ordo Amoris is, it's Catholic, it's philosophical.
Well, it's very humanistic.
It might be good for culture, but there is the love of Christ. God killed his own son on principle.
Yeah, so there's something not right about that. And I don't know, I'm not getting into a deep theology.
That's why I brought it up, because in all these areas, cabinet appointments, executive orders, immigration, Christianity, I'm thrilled. I'm like 3 weeks in. Wow. But I do think there's these just tiny red flags that in any administration, and particularly now, the Bible says the number one sign of the times, of the last days, is spiritual deception.
Yeah.
And so all these have the element of red flag in them that I think Bible Nation Society's job is to say, good job, now let's not cross the line.
It's an interesting thing. My mind's running with this now, because it is the theological equivalent to America First. That's what he's saying theologically.
Yeah.
I mean,
Seek ye first the kingdom of God.
Well,
but America's not the kingdom of God.
No, we're going to put Americans first, right? Why? Because there are greater interests and there are greater proximity. We're not going to. How are we going to take care of another country? How are we going to take Ukraine? How are we going to take care of Ukrainians if we can't take care of South Carolinians?
Yeah.
And yes, that plays, and it's very populist. But that is the theological kind of response to that of loving that which you're naturally and supposed to love first.
Hence the Trump Bible.
No, I'm just saying there's something.
Yes.
The Pauline verse here, Galatians 6:10, as we have therefore opportunity, let us do good unto all men, especially unto them who are of the household of faith. So
that's what they say. Yeah.
As we have opportunity.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And there is opportunity.
I'm going to feed my family. I'm going to feed my neighbor. I'm going to feed my brother. And I'm going to feed somebody. If I can feed them, I'm going to feed them. Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, we're not opposed to this. This is a turn in the right direction, which the last demonstration, who were they helping? They're not helping anybody. They're giving money to USAID, who's giving money to their mindset, and they're grabbing some in the middle. And that's what they're fighting against, because they're all going to be exposed on it. Even some of the liberal media like BBC and Politico, they're getting money from, all that. So it was a dog eat dog, all self sort of issue. And so turning, the best culture is a Bible culture, is proven, and it works. And so they're trying to lean to that without quoting a scripture verse. They're trying to lean to that without recognizing who Jesus is, right? And so it's philosophical. It's Catholic philosophical, which is, Catholic philosophy is very Arian, which means God becomes man. Mm-hmm. And so, Vance and Trump, you got egos like that. You can slip into that. So I was just saying, it's a slippery road. There's just great things happening in America, but also seeds of potential deception.
Well, and what has Paul warned the Thessalonians? I think, or Peter, or not Paul, that he'll be able to deceive even the elect.
Right. And
so we understand this deception is not. It's not, the devil's not coming as a red costume, pitchfork, and horns, and like, there's the devil.
Yep.
It's as I was preaching Wednesday night, it's the lie we want to believe.
Right.
Like, how do you believe a lie? You want to believe that lie. And listen, we want to believe Trump.
Yes.
We want to. And I'm not calling him the lie yet.
Right.
But If there was a lie that we wanted to believe,
Yeah.
it would be Trump.
He's the new George Washington. Our country's born again. He's the golden-haired, fairy that's
Well,
coming.
he takes every opportunity to remind us that the only other president, and he says it's not quite verified, so it may not be true, to not take his salary was George Washington.
Right.
He says, I'm not taking my salary.
Yeah.
Hence, I'm George Washington.
Yeah. Yeah. He definitely has accolades. I mean, in a sense, he wants to do right by us. In another sense, he really wants to do right by himself. And even his family kind of is in this semicircle around him. And that just goes to show there's the idea of saying I believe in a person, and that's very close to saying worship. Worship is if you worship Christ, that means you're of his opinion, even about yourself. I'm a sinner, right? And so when you start really just being Trump dogmatic, you can cross the line to believing in a person to just worshiping a person. And I've always said that's real dangerous. And like Obama had that element, Biden didn't have that element, Kamala didn't have that element, but Trump has that same element. And so it's something, it's real success, but on the other hand, like Pastor Jason said, it's what we want. It's imagined success.
I think just going back to like the amount of executive orders that Pastor Jay mentioned, if the roles were reversed, we would be up in arms with that many executive orders. So it's those kinds of things that like let's keep a level head about these things, because when it's reversed, we're not happy.
Change
so
leadership, change paradigm, twist
Yeah.
vocabulary. It could be us who are being deported to El Salvador. And so that's why we always have to be careful about that. So right now it's like we're winning.
Yeah.
It's the first quarter. It's 14-zip. We're out to a good start. And let's give credit where credit is due. Great coaching, great execution, politically, et cetera, et cetera. Let's take it. Let's rejoice in the Lord and give glory to God in that and hope for what's next. Well, folks, it's been great. We're going to take a break. We're going to come back for episode number 2. We're going to talk about foreign policy, wins and draws. Remember, the best culture is a Bible culture. It's proven and it works.